Hello and welcome. You are listening to Gay with God, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Are we still searching? The stories you hear in this podcast will melt your heart and can strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with God. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. So welcome back to Gay with God. I'm so excited that you guys are still coming back and that you love these stories. I love these stories, and I'm so happy to always be able to bring them to you. So I want to introduce you to someone that's very special to me. Her name is Martha Lewis, and I just love her. I want to tell people she's kind of like saucy, like the best salsa you've ever tasted, and then she's just sweet as honey. I mean, she's in this combination. You better watch her because she's going to come at you with a little bit of heat, but she's the sweetest person that you'll ever meet. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but that's just apparently the way we are today on this rainy day. So Martha, welcome to Gay with God.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
So feel free to tell our listeners anything about you that you would like them to know before we get into your faith journey story. Anything about your work, anything that you just want them to know about you, and then we'll get into your faith journey story.
Well, let's see. Right now I work in a prison. I've been there for 15 years. Before that, I was a EMT. So I kind of went from the fire to the frying pan.
Literally.
Literally. What was I thinking? And I was actually raised in this town of Asheboro, where I was the first girl back in 1972 to be allowed to play Little League Baseball.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a claim to fame right there.
Absolutely. I got the pictures to prove it.
That's right. You do. Well, girl, you and I met a long time ago.
Yes.
In the coffee shop in Asheboro, and it was just a chance meeting, and I was peddling something. I was wanting to get somebody to buy something. I can't even remember now what it was.
Book.
Oh, the book. Yeah, that's right. The book. Sheba, Home is Where Your Heart Is. There's a plug. Go to my Second Chances Facebook group and you can see where that is. But anyway, so that was just a chance meeting. We met, and that was about it until about a year ago or so. And I mean, we've kind of, I guess, touched base in between that time, but through Facebook. But then about a year ago, you were one of the people that I talked with when I was starting my business, and then was interviewing some of the people that I knew that were gay, and also talking about running an LGBTQ group in town. And you guys had said, well, you should meet Father Joe and come to the Good Shepherd. That's where we go. And my first statement, I think, out of my mouth was, why do you go there? Yeah, I could not put my little head around the fact that people that were gay were going to church, and also like a regular kind of church, not like a St. Mary's Metropolitan Community Church for mainly gay people. But so that was very interesting to me. And the more I get to know your story and the more I hear about the journey you've been on, I think our paths were very similar in a lot of different ways in the struggles we've had. So let's just start at the beginning with your faith journey story. When did you know you were gay?
Well, playing ball in high school, going to college, I never had a clue. And because I was playing sports, I didn't have time for romance. And, I was a tomboy growing up, have 3 older brothers, older sister. I always kid everybody saying my sister is Miss Congeniality, Miss Princess this, I'm Miss Field and Stream. That's me. We are totally opposite, but my sister is my hero. Let me just put that out there. So went to college, was there for 4 years, didn't have a clue, no clue whatsoever, played sports all through that. Well, probably about a year after I graduated college, I'm in my mom and dad's house. It's like, I'm just going to go find an apartment, go find a couple of buddies, just to rent a room from, just to kind of get out from under their thumb, so to say. And as a little backstory, I was raised in the local Baptist church here in this town. I affectionately call it the Church of the Chosen Frozen. So, you go to church every Sunday, you got choir practice on Wednesday, GAs, you name it, youth choir. We were there. I mean, the Lewis family was going to be in that church. And I grew up in this church. And I can remember a very long time ago, just to give you a mindset of this church, they had the youth of the church. They wanted us to write letters when that program, you remember SOAP?
Yes.
They wanted us to write letters saying we condemned that show. And I'm like, I'm not writing no letter. I like the show. I like the main character, Billy Crystal. I'm like, I know people like that. Didn't know what it was called, but I'm like, oh, he's funny. I like him. So, growing up in this church, this is the way it's got to be. It was the first time I heard somebody say amen in church, I about fell out the pew. Because it just wasn't done. Okay, so back forward. So I move in with 2 girls. We shared a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, at that time, when I moved in there, they said, hey, do you have a problem with it? We're together. And I'm like, what do you mean together? Well, we're together. I mean, you always knew, you kind of knew, oh, they're a tomboy. They're this, they're that. So they were, people are labeling people even back then. And I'm like, I don't care. What y'all do is what y'all do. I don't care. I'm not gay. Little did I know.
Yeah.
So, I'm teaching Sunday school in church, going to, getting some extra college classes in afterwards because I wanted to go to Southeastern Seminary. Wanted to be a youth minister. Well, one of the 2 girls in that relationship thought evidently that I was coming on to her girlfriend.
Whoops.
And I'm like, huh? I'm like, is there a manual for this? I have no clue. So, and I tried to assure them, no, I'm just here until I can find a place of my own. I appreciate this, blah, blah, blah. So one Saturday night, they said, hey, we need a designated driver. We're going to go out to a party. Will you drive us? Because we know you don't drink. And I'm like, okay. So we went to Greensboro to the warehouse.
Oh.
So here I am in the middle of a gay club in Greensboro, and I see half of my hometown. And I'm
funny how that works out.
Oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm gay. So, I'm just kind of sitting there, and I got like 5 or 6 phone numbers, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with these. I am the designated driver. This is my job. Because the next morning, at the Church of the Chosen Frozen, they were going to give their approval, acknowledgement. The congregation with the Southern Baptist, the whole church has to approve you to go to seminary. You have to get their blessing.
Oh.
So we go to the bar, and when I walked into the bar, I was like, oh, this is where I'm kind of comfortable here. None of this is bothering me. Everybody's just having a good time. I'm like, well, there's something to this. But I immediately felt like I was home.
Wow.
Because I dated guys at college, who actually turned out to be gay.
Yeah.
We laugh about that later on now. I mean, I'm still friends with him and we kind of laugh about it. So, we go to the club, we come home, I get them home safely. The next day, I feel like I got this big L, because I feel like I'm home. I have found my people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing in front of the church in, this big chosen frozen church, and they accept me or they acknowledge me and give their blessing to go to seminary. So I'm like, awesome. So I'm getting my stuff ready, my credentials, my papers and everything. Mom and dad are happy. Oh, they're going to have a child that's going to be a youth pastor in a church, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to reach out to youth. Probably about a month before I was supposed to leave, the church or the pastor of that church received an anonymous letter.
Uh-oh.
Now, I love a coward who will write a letter and not sign their name. Because I'm the kind of person, you nailed it. I can be salty, saucy. I can be sweet. But yeah, don't go after my integrity or my family name. That's a buzzkill right there.
Right.
So this letter stated that I was in a relationship with another female that I had been, and they don't see how I could stand up in front of a church. Well, the only two people I had told were my two roommates. And I figure it was one of them because she thought I was hitting on her girlfriend or whatever. So the pastor of that church at the time, and I'm not going to give his name, called me into his office. And he said, well, what's up with this letter? And I'm like, what letter? So he let me read it. And I'm like, there's no truth to this, because evidently, like I said, I didn't know I was gay. I had no clue. And he says, well, this is a serious matter, and we need to take back our recommendation that you go to seminary.
Oh, wow.
So not only did they send that letter to my pastor, they sent it to my parents.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, Martha.
So imagine the hornet's nest that I walk into. And and I can honestly say, I looked at the pastor and I was like, there's no truth to this. And he says, well, we have to take it back. We're not going to allow you to go. And I'm like, you're not going to allow me to go?
Wow.
He said, no. Now, as in a little while later, he left the church because he was having an affair.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just a little tidbit there. So I walk into my folks' house and, I'm upset. I am pissed because somebody has said something that isn't true. So I walk into my house, my mom and dad go, we got this letter. And I'm like, it's not true. I took some girls that I was living with. I was being kind. I drove them to a club, but there's no truth to this. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I go get a job, I guess. So I started playing industrial ball around. I was a pretty good ball player. So they actually hired me just to play ball.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, good job. So there was one night that that I decided, I'm gonna go back up to Greensboro. I'm gonna go to the club, check it out. I don't want to have this stuff around me. And met a couple of my friends up there and actually met this girl.
Wow.
And we were probably together about 3 years. Talking about going from the fire to the frying pan. Well, I went fire, frying pan, frying pan, frying pan. Until I met Shar. Now, I met Shar online. Shar's my wife. She was in California, and I was in North Carolina.
Wow.
And we met online, and something just clicked. So we'll be celebrating 25 years this coming February.
Beautiful.
So when they took my recommendation away, I said I will never step foot back in this church again. Mm-hmm. And I didn't for a long time. And one of the pastors later, he contacted me. He said, I want to sit down and talk to you. And I'm like, well, what church are you from? He said, oh, I'm from the Baptist church. I said, I want nothing to do with you. I don't want nothing to do with that church. And he said, well, we've got a little offshoot of the church, and it's called Awe.
Awe, like AAHH or something like that. Awe. AWE.
Alternative Worship Experience.
Oh.
I was like, okay, well, where's it held at? He said, well, it's held in the parlor of the Church of the Chosen Frozen. And I'm like, uh-huh. And I told him what had happened. And I said, and I vowed I'd never step foot in this church again. So I said, I started thinking, I'm like, I haven't been in church for a long time. Now, I am a more spiritual person than I am a religious person. Mm-hmm. That's always the way I've been. I don't like structured religion. Mm-hmm. So I talked to Shar about it. I said, well, let's go try it out, see what it's about. So we walked in, and it was an alternative worship experience, but I had a panic attack just by stepping in, and this is in the middle of me working in a prison. I walk in this place. There's 3 people in there that were former inmates.
Oh, my goodness.
That on top of the panic attack I'm having. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, get me out of here. Mm-hmm. So we left. Mm-hmm. And that pastor, he called me. He goes, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Mm-hmm. He said, well, come back next Sunday. I'm like, okay. So we went back next Sunday, and it was a little better. We're like, okay, well, maybe if this is our way of getting back into a church, even though it's alternative worship experience, we'll go. So we probably went off and on for about 2 years.
Wow.
And, and we kept telling them, I want to be of service. I want to help, teens. I want to be of service. What can I do? Well, we were told we could make coffee and bring it up at the beginning of the church service. I make a hell of a mean cup of coffee.
I bet you do, girl.
So I looked at Shar. I said, this just ain't it. This is, no, this is just not it. And so we still kept going haphazardly, And during this time, my mom had been battling Alzheimer's, probably for about 10, 11 years. So now, like I said, this is the same church we were all raised in. They knew my mom. They knew the whole family. So when my mom passed away, we went to, let me back up. My dad had passed away in 2005. Now, he had Parkinson's. So I actually came out to my sister then, because I'm sitting here going, well, where's Shar going to sit at the funeral? Uh-huh. My dad's dead, and I'm trying to figure out how Shar's going to sit with us at the family. Yeah. Because my family is always like, well, who's this friend?
Yeah, right. You have a lot of friends.
We used to call them friends. This is my friend. So, and I actually came out to my sister in the room I'm sitting in, and I said, I have a question. And she says, well, what is it? I said, where's Shar going to sit? She goes, what do you mean where's Shar going to sit? She's going to sit with you. And I'm like, is that okay? She goes, well, why wouldn't it be? And I'm like, oh, geez. And my sister started smiling. So she knew
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Shar and I are a couple. And my sister goes, a couple of what?
Smart Alec.
I said, you're making this difficult. She goes, yes, I am. I said, LaRue, I'm gay. She goes, well, tell me something the whole family don't know.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? She goes, Martha, we've known. I said, does mom and daddy know? She goes, well, they kind of follow that don't ask, don't tell. She goes, just don't mention it. They'll never bring it up. And I'm like, that works for me. I said, but does everybody know? Yeah. The nieces and nephews love you to death. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay. And that was such a weight lifted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going, whoo, hallelujah. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole family knows except mom and dad. And so let me fast forward. So we're back at mama's funeral. My mom had passed away, and we were back in this church. And the one thing with dementia, it's a long goodbye.
Yes.
You know, and so is Parkinson's, but dementia is just like, I was upset, but I wasn't that upset because I had actually said goodbye to my mom probably 9 months before.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I walked in the room, I said, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm good. She goes, well, who are you? I'm like, oh. So I'm like, okay. And so I was prepared.
Mm-hmm.
What I wasn't prepared for was the way I was treated in the church during my mom's funeral.
Mm.
So we're sitting in a pew. The eulogy is going on, and Shar reaches up and puts her arm around my shoulder like you would.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had my head down and I just looked up and I happened to glance over, and the church organist or pianist, she was on the left, so that should be the piano, was just giving this god awful horrid look.
Mm.
And I'm like, what in the world? And then she quickly looked away.
Oh.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this church.
Mm-hmm.
I am done with. What bothered me the most was here's somebody that is claiming to be Christian, and they feel comfortable enough in a church at a funeral for someone they know to have that sort of look on their face.
Yeah.
And Shar now, whoo, she's a true redhead. She was hotter. Oh my gosh. It was like, can we get this funeral over and get out of here? Because hell has no fury like that woman scorned.
We're going to have a throwdown right here.
Oh my gosh. Y'all better start playing Shall We Gather at the River, because the floodgates is fixing to open.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I walked away from that church. I closed the doors. I have not darkened that doorstep since.
Yeah.
Because I cannot believe something, like I said, somebody felt that comfortable in doing that. And it was probably 2 years later. You know, we had been to book study classes on Thursday where we study with Jane and Bill, two great friends. And it was actually Jane that said, look, I know your story. She goes, there's this church. She goes, I was actually raised Episcopalian. She said, and there's this church over here. She goes, we need to go one Sunday. And I was like, Jane, I'm not going. I said, church can pound sand. I'm not going. You know, I can worship God on the back deck of my house and be one with nature, one with him. I am not. Shar goes, well, yeah, sure, we'll go. And I'm like, wait, what?
Get our story straight, girl.
Wait, I said no. You said. She goes, we're going. She goes, it's Jane and Bill. How bad could it be? And I'm like, it could be. Oh, okay. So with my jaw in a tight clench, we go to this Episcopal church, beautiful church, beautiful church. And we get out of the car and Jane and Bill's there. And I guess they're in front of us. So I walk in the door and evidently here's this little tiny Italian woman named Linda Roberts. She's my so-called church ma. And ma, where we are, where I'm from here, it's a sign of respect. When you say, hey, ma, because now I've only got one mama.
Yeah.
She's my church ma.
Yeah.
So here's this little tiny Italian woman coming up to me going, hey, how are you doing? And I'm going, who is this crazy woman coming up to me? Because that's not going to happen in the Church of the Chosen Frozen. And she goes, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, yes, ma'am. She goes, oh, come on with me. You'll be fine. So she drags me and Shar. She leaves her post at the vestry thing, drags us and says, no, you can just sit with us. And now me, all the 15 years I've been in the corrections and I did private security a long time before that, I'm going to sit in the back row.
Right.
Because I need to know where the exits are. I first walk in the building and I'm like, okay, there's an exit. There's nobody behind me. If something happens, I'm grabbing Shar. We're getting the hell out. So Miss Linda goes, no, come on down here and sit with us. I'm like, okay. Shar goes, come on. So she sits with us during the whole service. And I'm sitting here and I look to my left and I see another gay couple. And I'm like, and I look at Shar and I'm like, Shar, there's gay people over there. Shar goes, I see them. I was like, no, there's another one up there, which was Maxine and Elizabeth. And then the other two, the male couple, and I cannot, Don
and Glenn.
And I look at Linda and I'm like, you do know we're gay, right? She goes, you do know we don't give a shit. And I'm like, and I look at Shar and I said, this woman done said shit in church. She goes, oh, honey, it's okay. We're Episcopals. So, I'm going, okay. And, went up. She goes, now you can go take communion. And I'm like, well, it ain't Christmas. It ain't Easter. She goes, no, we do it every Sunday. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, come on. And I'm like, so, okay. So we go up and take communion and Father Joe's there and he looks at me. So we have this thing that we do now every time I go up and get communion when he's there is I go up and I put my hands up and when he looks at me and says body of Christ, I just give this big shit-eating grin. So I'm like, and he just does that and you can see his lips and I move on. So Linda, after the service, she goes, well, where are you going? I was like, well, I'm going out to my car and go. She goes, no, honey, we've got coffee hour. I'm like, coffee hour? She goes, yeah, I'm going to introduce you to some people. So here's this little tiny 5 foot nothing.
Force of nature.
She's got tattoos, she's little tiny. She drags me and Shar down to the parlor and she's just introducing us to now, I'm not a hugger.
Right.
I'm getting better. I hug you and I hug Sue.
Yep.
So we're baby steps.
We are privileged.
So we walk into this coffee hour and it's like all of a sudden Shar and I are the bright new penny. Everybody's coming up. Hey, how you doing? You're welcome here. We love everybody. Everybody here can be of service. Please come back. They've got coffee and cookies. And I'm like, hey, coffee and cookies. I'm coming every week. I'm there. So, and Jane and Bill's there. And after the service, I look at Shar and Shar goes, I think we found our home.
Aww.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Because I had been burnt so bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Father Joe actually came up to us at the coffee hour and he says, look, he says, we don't care. We just want you here.
Mm.
He says, I can tell by looking at you that you've been hurt by the church.
Mm.
And I said, oh, yeah, definitely. And I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to come back. He says, well, please do. He says, we want you here. We want you both here.
Mm.
And I'm like, we'll see. So the next Sunday, we get up out of bed and I'm kind of hesitant. And Shar goes, get dressed. I'm like, what? She goes, we're going to church. And I'm like, where? She goes, we're going to go to the Episcopal Church. I'm like, okay. So we went, sat in the 5th row from the back. That's our dedicated seats. My church ma was there. She come up. And here's this little woman come up, about jump in my arms and hugging me. And I'm like, oh, I'm not a hugger. She goes, yes, you are. Yes, ma'am. So, and we've been going back ever since. And it's so funny now because it actually feels like home. It's like I can go there. I don't have to worry about snide comments. I mean, even if someone goes there and they're not comfortable with somebody being gay, they don't blatantly show it. They still going to treat you with respect and love. Mm-hmm. That to me is what a true Christian or a follower of Christ is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm totally glad that you guys are there. I don't know if I would have been as willing to go had I not, I'd talked to, to Max and to Elizabeth too. And then I talked to you guys and the reason that I went was to get a free space for our group. and that's how it started, to meet with Father Joe to see if I could get a free space and to find out why I would take all of my gay friends to a church for a meeting when they had been burned as I had been burned. So, it was such a big step, but knowing that you guys felt so comfortable just kept resonating with me, and you just kept talking about it so lovingly and so comfortably. And I'm like, wow. So do you think that, let me back up a little bit to two things. One thing that I thought about was that they took away your dream of being a youth minister. Mm-hmm. So what happened with that dream, and how did you reconcile that piece of your life?
I took some online courses and became an ordained minister.
Yay, you. Yay, you.
Yeah. I don't preach in a church. I'd rather not, because there's too many hypocrites.
Uh-huh.
But, I do have people that will contact me. Hey, will you do a gay wedding? Of course I will.
Yes.
I've done straight weddings. I've done gay weddings.
Yeah.
Love is love.
Yeah.
So, I've got my ordination. And, I try to reach out to the LGBT, the Alphabet Mafia.
Yeah. I know. I'm 62. If we add any more letters, I'm not going to be able to remember it.
The Alphabet Mafia. Yeah. Here we go. And that's what I think, here in Asheboro, we need a resource like that.
Yes.
I mean, how scared we were just to march in the Christmas parade.
Oh, heck yeah, we were scared. Yeah.
And it shouldn't be like that. Not
exactly.
Age. I should not have to fear, walking in the mall or, taking my wife's hand to walk hand in hand. I see the younger people doing it, the younger generation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? It's because of us that y'all can do that.
Right. But we're still too scared.
We're scared as hell because we've been through that fire.
Yeah.
Dar and I have had slurs, thrown at us when we lived in California.
Yeah.
We've gotten dirty looks, and then I blow up like a bullfrog if I see somebody looking the wrong way. I mean, it's all of a sudden I'm up here like, beefing up going, okay, we in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there needs to be a place here in Randolph County, in Asheboro, somewhere for teens and even adults that they can go and feel safe.
Yes.
Because the only time we ever see gay people is at the fall festival.
Yes. And then you don't acknowledge that you know each other.
You do that, you either do the head tilt.
Yep.
Or the head nod. Yep. Now I go out of my way. If I see a gay couple or a lesbian couple in a group setting, I'll throw up my hand and say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah.
And it freaks them out because it's like, you're doing this out in the open.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a resource.
Yeah.
And not having everybody go to Greensboro, but I don't know how well it would be accepted.
Yeah. Well, and even today, Patrice had asked me if I could come up with some gay teachers and to talk about, to actually be interviewed and talk about integrating LGBTQ curriculum into the school system. And I said to Patrice, I said, listen, in this county, they probably won't be allowed to speak on that because it's some kind of a morality code, or they'd be too scared that they would lose their job. And so it's going to have to probably, I'll do it. I was in the school system as a school counselor, but I don't know of any actively serving LGBTQ teacher who would actually come out and say that they were gay. Maybe there are some, but I don't know them. But if anybody does know one or two, I'd love to meet them and introduce them to Patrice. But anyway, but you're right that the stigma in this county against gay people is just blatant. It's blatant, and bad things have happened in this county because of that. The other thing that I wanted to go back to is with your parents, with the don't ask, don't tell, knowing them as you knew them, do you think that they ever would have understood? They would have, I think, always loved you, but do you think they would have been able to integrate who you are totally with their belief system from the church?
No.
Yeah.
I would think, in all honesty, if I was going to be honest, I think I would probably have been disowned.
Oh.
Not from my brothers and sisters.
Right.
But I think they would come around after a while, but their initial response would probably be like, yeah, no. Mm-hmm. But the saving grace was that I wasn't living in the house.
Right.
Because I'm sure if I would have been living in the house, I would have been asked to leave. Wow. But it's just, it's on old thoughts, old beliefs, not basing it on who I was, but I think eventually they would have come around. Mm-hmm. So by the grace of God, thank you. I wasn't living in the house. Mm-hmm. And I think they were happy just with me being alive.
Yeah.
And they accepted Shar. Now, Shar was the only one that they actually liked, from what I could tell from my sister.
Yeah.
But I still have one brother, love him to death. He loves me. We get along fine. But his belief is I'm going to hell because I'm gay.
Wow.
But you know what? I'm going to love him anyway. And, when I get to the pearly gates before him, I'm going to show up in my fabulous sequined angel wings. I'm going to have a disco ball twirling, and I'm going to open that gate and say, ha ha, I told you.
That will be a wonderful day, won't it? Not that you're gone, but that we could embrace others. Hopefully he'll make it. Well, that's, and that's a sad thing that the way the scriptures have been interpreted all these years have made really good people into very judgmental Christians.
Absolutely.
And it's sad that it has to be that way, because in their honor to their God that they believe in, agreeing with sin makes them also a sinner. And so that's the hard sell. The hard sell is, how do I love this person and not judge them when they may lead me to hell? So how did you reconcile that with your own faith and your own teachings and who you are?
It's the way I look at it is God has a sense of humor. And I believe my God made me this. I don't even like to say made me this way. Mm-hmm. God created me like this to teach other people tolerance. Mm. But I had to learn that tolerance with my family to be able to teach it to others. because I'm not a flag waving lesbian, whatever. When people get to know me, they see me. I don't tell them nothing about me, being gay, me and Sharp being together. It comes up later on in the conversation. And they're like, well, you don't act like what we see on TV. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, yeah. I said, anytime you see something gay or something lesbian on TV, it's either the flamers or it's the real butch lesbians that's got the chain, the leather, the everything. I was like, they're not showing us as professionals.
Right.
They show the extremes.
Right.
I said, so, and like I said, my job is to teach tolerance to other people. And I had a struggle with, I still have some of that chosen frozen mentality.
Yeah.
That I'm trying to work through.
Yeah.
But I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I don't have a doubt in my mind, because why would my God create me like this unless he was going to use me for his purpose?
Right. Right.
And if that purpose is trying to help teens or adults, my house is always open. I can have a pot of coffee on, we can talk. This house is a safe haven. Mm-hmm. And people has just got to learn to, not be scared of us.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying of, it's lesbian camping season. You may see us out in the wild. It's okay to approach. Yeah. You'll recognize us in Birkenstocks and tank tops.
Yeah.
But it's just it's hard to explain. It took a long time to come to grips with my sexuality, but it was something that I needed to go through, because I needed to be sure of my faith, and I needed to be sure that the good Lord loved me just the way he made me. It's not a choice.
No, it's definitely not a choice. And I don't know anybody who would make that choice. People, yes, I would love to make the choice to be disowned, excommunicated, possibly beaten and killed, and always told I'm going to hell just because I'm breathing. Yes, please sign me up for that.
Everywhere to sign.
Yep. Well, so I think that your story is so poignant, because not only did you grow up in the church and you had a mission, you knew what you were being called to do in this world. And as you say, with God's sense of humor, he took that, and now your scope is so broad for someone who doesn't, you were in the article in the paper the other day, you're now on my show. My podcast, I just am so impressed with you and so thankful that you're just telling your truth, and you're allowing people to hear it in a way and in formats that are going to be something that a kid could pick up that paper and read that and never tell anybody that they read it. But your words will resonate. Your story is going to resonate with those kids, and it's going to resonate with people, just kind of like with me. And I'm interviewing you that day just because of my business, and, to see what gay people would need out of the business I was starting. And then later it was for that group. But, that day at Burrito Brothers, I think is where we met.
No, Cafe Express.
Did we go to Cafe Express?
Yeah,
that's right. I don't remember that. Not our first meeting, but when we were talking about the church stuff. Did we go to lunch at Burrito Brothers? Yeah. We drink and we eat, and that's how we socialize. I gotta be sorry. But that started my journey of getting back to church after all those years. And I don't know if I would have done it. I wasn't ready to do it. I fought it. And I'm really glad that I did it, but it was uncomfortable for me as it was uncomfortable for you. And that's what gave me some hope that if you were still there, that said a lot to me that you were still there.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, and we both give props to Father Joe that his ability to cut through the scriptures and to put it in such a sensible way and look at how the interpretations have led all ministers down the wrong path.
Oh, absolutely.
And have led all of us mostly away from church. So, but he's a gem. And I came for certain reasons, and I'm staying because, like you, I feel like it's home, and the people there, and led by Father Joe, is just a combination that's hard to walk away from once you get to experience it. And just so people know, if you are in the local area and you want to go to the Church of the Good Shepherd, not everybody hugs you. So although we are kind of a hugging group, but not now because we're socially distancing and we're following the rules of safety. Yeah, we'll have to, how when you go down for Eucharist, if you don't want the Eucharist, you can cross your arms over your chest and they'll just give you a blessing. Well, maybe the new people just go ahead and cross your hands over your chest and like, I don't want to be touched today. Yep. But it's a great place, and it's absolutely open. And the thing that I love about it is that it's not, Father Joe didn't say to you, we really want you here because behind your back we're going to pray for your soul. He wanted you there because he knew that you had a right to be gay and still have a relationship with God, and that was your birthright. And so, those churches that have that welcome sign out there, everyone's welcome, but that doesn't mean that they embrace you as you authentically are.
No.
But we Episcopalians at the Church of the Good Shepherd do. So that's all right. So what else is on your heart before I get to my final question? Is there anything else that you want to share with the good listeners of the Gay with God podcast?
No, it's like here's the thing, you know who Harvey Milk is.
Yes.
I try to follow his plan. Mm-hmm. We have got to give hope. Mm. We have got to give our kids, our youth. I mean, I don't have kids, thank goodness, but I've got nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
But if one of them was gay, we have got, as a gay community, us older ones, we have got to give them hope. Mm-hmm. Hope that they can make it through whatever struggle. Hope that they know that there's, other people out there just like them that struggled in a different time. Mm-hmm. I just want them to, and it's like I said in the article, find us, help us find you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good. So the final question that I always ask all of my guests is that what is the one thing that you would share with someone who is struggling, that you wish maybe that somebody had said to you back when you were struggling, either coming out or with your faith? What is the one thing that you would have wanted somebody to share with you?
It's okay. You're not going to hell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna be just fine. You're gonna have some struggles, but we got you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That resonates with me today. Thank you. So I want to thank you, Martha.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for honoring us with your faith journey story. And I want to thank the listeners for coming back each week, supporting, sharing, and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to see more information or connect with Martha later, I'll be putting some links in the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com, and you'll see a lovely picture of her. And then you will also be able to connect with her if you're struggling, if you want to reach out, if you want to have her marry you. Not, her marry you, but marry you and whoever you want to be married to. We can get you in touch with Martha. So if you are questioning whether you can be gay and be in relationship with God, if you are authentically gay, God has always been within you, even when you didn't know it. So you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned to hear how you can join the Gay with God community. And one of those ways would be check us out on Facebook. I have a group called Gay with God, and you are welcome to join that group. And if you do, please answer all the questions, because I really want to be able to know that you're the right fit for the group and we're the right fit for you. So thanks so much, everybody. See you next week.
I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.